The kings and queens of Egypt wore complex and beautiful crowns to signify their power and position. Some kings and queens seem to have been particularly fond of certain crowns, and some were particularly associated with certain gods. Headdresses and crowns of Egypt. Discover the history and religious beliefs surrounding the different types and styles of the crown of Egypt. The red, white and double crown of Egypt feature in many images, hieroglyphs, pictures and amulets found in ancient Egypt. The different styles of the royal crown of Egypt all had meanings, some were worn by the pharaoh and others by the ancient Egyptian gods. The different types of crowns of Egypt represented status, power and authority of both the Egyptian pharaohs and gods. The crowns associated with Egypt included the atef, the dishret, the headjet and the shint. Headdresses include the categorized that was the blue crown that was worn in battle. The different crowns of Egypt are depicted in ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, art, artifacts and relics. Examples of the crowns and headdresses can be found in the tombs, temples and manuscripts of the ancient Egyptians. Dishret, red crown. The dishret, the red one, confirmed the king as the ruler of Lower Egypt. Although no example of these crowns survive, that we know of, scholars have proposed that they were made of fabric or leather with wire, possibly of copper, ending in a spiral. The red crown, or dishret, may very well have originated in Upper Egypt, although it eventually became associated as the symbol of Lower Egypt. A sherd from a large vessel dated to late Naqada I, near the town of Nubt, the city of Set, has a representation in relief of the red crown, and on both the Narmer palette and Makhed the king's figure is shown wearing the red crown. According to Egyptian mythology, the dishret was first given to the god Horus by Deb to symbolize his rule over Lower Egypt. It was worn by the goddess Wajet and was also referred to as Nti from the Middle Kingdom because of its association with the goddess Nath. Headjet, white crown. The headjet, the white, or bright one, was always associated with Upper Egypt and confirmed the rule of the king over southern Egypt. Evidence from Cemetery U in the tomb Uj, dating to Naqada i.e. a period of pre-dynastic Egypt, confirms that this symbol is very old indeed, but like the red crown, no example has been recovered, leaving us to guess at its composition. The white crown is depicted on one side of the Narmer palette. It remained popular throughout Egyptian history and was also worn by gods with a particular connection to Upper Egypt, notably Anuket the vulture goddess of Nekhebit, and Horus of Nekhen, Hierakonpolis. Seshed, double crown. At the dawn of the Pharaonic period, King Narmer was depicted on one face of the Narmer palette wearing the white crown smiting a northern enemy, and on the other face wearing the red crown. Before long this idea was taken to its conclusion and the two crowns merged to Seshed, the double crown. The double crown, also known as Sekhemti, the two powerful ones, symbolized the king's rule of both Upper and Lower Egypt. The red crown and the white crown were sometimes seen as the manifestations of Wajet and Anuket, and so the front of the double crown is often embellished with the cobra, representing the goddess Wajet of Lower Egypt, and vulture, representing the goddess Anuket of Upper Egypt. Although, nemes. The nemes is not strictly a crown, but rather a striped headcloth. It covered the whole head, sometimes extending a little way down the back, and had two long flaps which hung down behind the ears and in front of both shoulders. The earliest depiction of the nemes, along with the uraeus, is the ivory label of Din from the First Dynasty. In addition to the uraeus, it was sometimes combined with the double crown, categorized, blue crown. The categorized, also known as the blue crown, was made from cloth or leather stained blue and was covered with small yellow sun discs. It is known as war crown by some largely because Ramesses II the Great was depicted wearing it in the reliefs of the Battle of Kadesh. However, its use does not seem to have been limited to warfare. The earliest reference to this crown is from the reign of Nefertiti III, Second Intermediate Period. It may have evolved from the more simple cap crown worn in earlier periods, but became more and more elaborate. By the 18th dynasty it had become so popular that some pharaohs adopted it as their primary crown. However, it seems to have fallen out of favor during the 25th dynasty. The atef. The atef crown was the crown of Osiris, although it was also worn by Sobek, Harishev, Satet and other deities when combined with Osiris, such as Sokar. It is composed of a central element much like the headjet, the white crown of Upper Egypt, woven from plant stems and flanked by two red ostrich feathers. It was worn on top of a wig adorned with a simple circlet and horns. From the New Kingdom onwards it was sometimes topped with a sun disk and urae. The rearing cobra symbol. The uraeus. The uraeus was the rearing cobra emblem and symbol of the pharaohs of Lower Egypt. The uraeus appears as a symbol worn on the royal crowns and nemes of Egypt and is also associated with the sun and with many Egyptian gods and goddesses. The double feathers. The shuti crown. The shuti, meaning the two feathers, divine law, consisted of two, tall ostrich or falcon feathers and often combined with ram horns, a uraeus or a sun disk. This crown is worn by the creator god Hatshepsut. The Amen crown. Double-plumed crown. The double-plumed, aka the Amen crown, was another style of the shuti and consisted of double, tall feathers as worn by the god Amen and the falcon-headed god Menthu. Amen crown. The four feathers crown. Four feathers. The four feathers crown was worn by the god Anhur, the Egyptian god of war and patron of the Egyptian army and royal warriors. The rush crown. The hemhem crown. The highly elaborate rush crown was constructed from a series of reeds and flanked by ostrich feathers. The hemhem was the triple rush crown that was worn tilted towards the back of the head. It is set on ram horns and flanked by ostrich feathers with sun disks and uraeus. The hemhem crown first appeared in the reign of Akhenaten and was connected to the sun and rebirth. Heka, the god of magic, was depicted wearing the hemhem crown. The striped headcloth. The nemes. The nemes was the striped headcloth worn by the pharaohs, which was tied at the back of the head with lappets that fell down either side of the face. A lappet is a decorative flap or fold in a ceremonial headdress or garment. Head horns crown. Cow horns crown. The cow horns crown is worn by the cow goddesses Isis and Hathor, consisting of head horns in which a sun disk is set. A uraeus cobra symbol is often depicted. Royal vulture crown. Royal vulture crown. Royal vulture crown consisted of a falcon feather headdress with its wings spread round her head in the act of protection, adorned by uraeus. The single ostrich feather. Ostrich feather. There was a belief that the heat of the sun caused ostrich eggs to hatch, which was seen as a reenactment of creation and made the ostrich a symbol of creation and light as worn by the god Shu. The feather of Mut represented truth, order and justice. Diadems. The seshed. Seshed. The seshed headdress consisted of a metal headband to which a uraeus was attached. Plain headcloth. The categorized. The categorized headdress was similar to the nemes but made from a plain material like a kerchief and secured at the back under a headband. It did not have pleats or stripes. Cap crown. The cap crown. The cap crown is usually plain or decorated with horizontal lines or with circles. The cap crown bears the uraeus. The Modius. Modius. The Modius was a type of flat-topped cylindrical headdress or crown of various sizes usually worn by queens or goddesses. A small Modius was also used as a crown base for the headdresses of male and female gods. The Modius crown base. Modius base. A small Modius was also used as a crown base for the headdresses of male and female gods. Feathers mounted on a Modius crown base. C. Round of Anuket. The goddess Anuket, the mistress of Nubia, was worshipped outside Egypt and Africa, and her crown resembles that of a type of headdress worn by an African chief.